Hello from Indy. All right, guys, I tore down a 440 the other day, and I just thought I would share some interesting things I found in there. I thought you might find it interesting. I really wish I had a video of the teardown. It would have been a great one to watch. But anyway, I'm going to share what I found with you, because it's a disaster. It's the worst I've ever seen, short of catastrophic failure. Anyway, so it's a 440, it's a 68 440 I tore down, or 69, no, 69, I'm sorry. It's a 69 440 out of a 69 Coronet. So I did a tear down on it, did the top end, pulled the heads. Heads look good. The bores looked good. It's a high mile engine. It's standard bore, and everything looked good there. The pistons, you know, here's one of them. I mean, it's high miles, but the rings are, the rings are nice and free, and nothing real eventful on the top end. And then I turned it down and pulled the pistons and the rods, and then it started getting a little bit more interesting. Now, I measured all my rod journals, and they were all very consistent. They were 375. And they're in good shape. You can see some materials being deposited on them, but you can't catch a finger. And they look okay. They're, high mile engine for sure. But then this is number 4, and this is the best clearance on them. And the clearance on this one, number 4, is 7 thousandths bearing clearance on that. And this was the best. Everything after that got looser. Not a lot, but a little bit looser. And that's quite a bit of clearance. But the bearing doesn't look, horrible. And here's all the other bearings. You can see this one's got a lot of heat in it. It was very loose in there. Each one of them tells an individual story. It's very unique to see this much individual variation in each bearing and discoloration and heat. One of these, I'm going to say something. I am not sure. These bearings, the only mark they have on them is a little lowercase e. So I'm not sure about them. The story with the engine, obviously, once I got it opened up, is this engine has been opened up, all new gaskets put in it, and new bearings, and then they closed it back up and sent it. Probably put a new cam in it and all that. And it's clear, just all the gaskets were aftermarket gaskets, had Velcro head gaskets, etc. These bearings, I don't know. I don't know the size of them. I don't know the brand of them, where they came from. I am not convinced that these are even the right bearing. They fit so loose in the rod. This, which is number 1, even though the tang is still intact, was so loose you could spin the bearing. It didn't tear the rod up, but once, it shouldn't be that loose. Once I took the load off of it, you just put the cap on it, you could just spin the bearing freely. I don't know, very odd. And you can see, just looking at each one of them, what's going on. I'm really surprised there wasn't some damage to the journals, but they're okay. And these are in their order. So that's that. And that, again, high mile engine, not that big a deal. Then I started pulling the mains, and now things take a turn for the worse, and we'll see when you notice it. So let's just look at the bearings. So number 1, typical. Nothing unusual, nothing bad. Number 2, a spun bearing. You can see that clearly, and it has it's torn that all up. Number 3, look at all the heat. This is on your main cap. This is in your block. This is the amount of heat that was in here. Now this, not terrible. It has some odd wear on it for sure. look at this, and everything, the material's just gone. Let you get a good look at this. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. Here's number 4, number 5. I'll give you just a second. This is the quiz. Do you notice something unusual? And I'm not pulling your leg because you can clearly tell that these are a match set. Do you notice a lack of a hole right here? And if you noticed on number 5, you've got 2 with a hole. As you can imagine, these bearings had no oil. And it just destroyed them. And you can imagine what that did to the crankshaft. So let's talk about the crankshaft. So here are our measurements. Number 1, 2,750. Looks nice. Can't catch a nail. It's pretty, actually. Looks really good. No problem with that at all. Number 2, 738. Let's go to number 2. And you can just see all. This was the one that was the spun bearing. Number 2. Okay? Number 2. And it's chewed up. And of course, it tore the block up a little bit. Go to number 3. It's even worse. 2,730. All right? Number 3. And this is this one here. And I have an idea why that was so bad. Number 4, we're even getting worse. 2,726. Back here. And this is this. And then number 5, which kind of surprised me, but it chewed it up really bad. This one is really, you'd have to feel it to really tell on that one. Something's going on back there. I imagine it ingested a lot of material. So the back 2 are 2,726. That's a lot of wear. And so what happened is, you know, it doesn't take a rocket scientist on this one, and this is why I'm posting these videos. You know, this was probably a really nice engine to begin with, and the guy took it apart, put new bearings in it, and gaskets and all that, and destroyed this engine. And not only did he put the bearings in wrong, but clearly it was driven that way for a long time. And the result is what happened to everything. It just, when this bearing got worn out, you started having a lot of flex in your crankshaft, which put the real heavy load on. This would be in your cap on your number 3, which would be in your middle. So your crankshaft's getting a lot of deflection, and it's just putting all that heat. And I know for a fact, I mean, it was a Coronet, right? He's drag racing, and he's winding it up probably to 6,500 or more, 6,800, and spun a bearing. The other thing is, no oil pressure gauge in the car. Nothing. So immediately he would have had oil pressure problems with the bearing clearances being, you know, I've heard of putting them loose, but boy, this is loose, man. So anyway, and everything's wiped out except number 1. This crank, for me, it's no good. I'm not gonna waste my time on it, but anyway, I just thought I would share this and show this is why it's so important. This is the result of improper bearing clearances, and this is the result of lack of detail, because this is a human error right here. Can't blame it on anyone. You can't blame it on materials. You can't blame it on the Chinese. Whoever put this engine together made a big mistake, and you don't want to be that guy. And I'm really surprised. I'm surprised that this was a running engine that somebody said, hey, take it apart and look at it. This should have thrown a rod. It should have disintegrated. It should have been not nearly as nice as it was. So anyway, I don't know. I'm rambling now. I just thought I would share this. You might find it interesting. There's so much. I could talk for a long time about the bearings. I mean, it's so unusual to pull one engine apart and have all these different stories of each bearing has got a different story. It's so unusual on the rods and the mains. Just very, very unique. I've not seen something like this. I'm sure guys that have built hundreds of engines probably see it all the time, but I never have. Just so unique and so interesting to look at. So I thought I'd share it, and I think that's it, guys. All right. Talk to you later. Hey, and also, if you have any thoughts or questions about this, share your input on this. And if you notice some things in some of these bearings, let me know. This is a good one to talk about. So, all right, guys. Thanks. Later.